Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Captive Audience. It's a wonderful Wednesday once again, and Don Anderson and Leslie Snyder are here to welcome you into your evening. What say you, Leslie?
Oh, yeah, it's Wednesday. There's been so much going on. Don and I have been trying to not do the pre-show, but there's just so much to talk about. So please join us by putting your notes in the chat. That encourages us and brings up new points for us to discuss and helps us know if we're on the right track of what you guys want to hear. So anyway,
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so, with that, why don't we just jump right into Portlandia?
yes,
Because nothing could be more fun than talking about Portland. And it just so
yes.
happens that the federal building nightmare is about 15 miles as the crow flies from where I live. However, I'm very fortunate in that, and those of you from the Northwest know the geography. We've got two rivers that serve as a moat to separate us from that. So they have Willamette River, which cuts Portland in half from east to west. And there's drawbridges on it too. So you can raise the drawbridge to separate yourself from Visigoths, and the and the pagans across the river. And then there's the Columbia River, which separates the two states, an even bigger river with only two bridges across it. So if everything really goes down, I'm figuring we could arm ourselves and we could block it like the Peloponnesians did at the Hot Gates back in the Greek wars. You have to think this way when you're dealing with the pagans, right? So in any event, that's where we are. And of course, unless you've had your head in the sand like an ostrich, you know that they're running wild in Portland. I think this is 105 days in a row of just straight flat rioting, and they're doing nothing to stop it. So I just posted an article that you all would find interesting here. Wells Fargo, one of the biggest buildings in downtown Portland is the Wells Fargo's building, and that Wells Fargo building laid off, let's see, 50 jobs, in the last month, which shouldn't be a shocker because anyone who's spent any time at downtown Portland lately, I drove through it. I had the displeasure of driving through it about a week ago. What strikes you is how empty the place is. I mean, there's just nobody around. And then you realize the reason it's like that is because the vacancy rates are like 40% down there. All of the businesses have fled. And when you listen to the leadership talking about why they fled, it's people working from home. And it's every excuse in the world except for the one most obvious one. And that's people are scared to death to go down there.
Mhm.
If you're down there after dark, you are on your own. And we see what kind of job the cops are doing in terms of protecting the police down there, rather protecting the citizens.
Mhm.
100 days in a row. Imagine you're living there. They're not enforcing the noise ordinances. They're loud. There's speakers. There's incendiary devices going on 24/7, and the leadership claims that they're controlling it. It's like the most unreal thing you've ever seen in your life.
So you were down there during the day, so you didn't see all the shenanigans that happen at night. You weren't driving around the
Oh
the
yeah,
federal building in order or the ice facility to see some of these. I mean,
I'm,
but
I'm trying. I'm trying to make my wife be a widower. So,
well, right, and I mean, I've been seeing on Twitter and Andy No, I don't know if that's how you say his name, but
yeah,
NGO.
right.
Um, he's got a Substack where he posts a lot of stuff, and he's got some folks that have been going in there and um, have been beaten, have been what do you call that with the they've been tear gassed. There's all sorts of things that are going on that is being instigated by the protesters. As soon as I guess they've also figured out that they're using the homeless people as paid protesters. I guess like Antifa is going and like raiding the homeless camps and saying, look, we'll give you, a Big Mac or, something paltry, or basically we won't beat you up if
Right.
you go up and rattle the gates, or if you shout some things, or if you throw a rock, at
Mhm.
these guys. And so one of the a homeless person actually went inside and said, look, this is what happened. And
Mhm.
he was given a minor sentence, but he like is spilling the beans. Apparently this is what's going on.
Well, what I have to say is I first have to compliment the ICE folks, and I would compliment them across the country for this, but Portland in particular, the amount of discipline that they've had to have not, shot anyone or done something, because clearly they're trying to goad them into making an incident like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So they can, so they can have their Kent State incident like they had in Kent State back in the 60s. And then they can blow it up and say how evil and mean and terrible they are, because
Yeah.
their discipline has been amazing, because
Yeah.
the local police have done absolutely nothing. I mean, it looks to me, I'm not going to just say it. I think they're in the pocket of Antifa pretty much.
Sure.
They might as well be.
Sure. Sure. Well, I mean, I think that if you feel like what's happening is unfair and unjust, you've probably retired. The only people that are sticking around are people that either can tolerate it, like, well, I don't like it, but I'm just going to go along with it. And, that's frankly, that's just as bad as actually being part of the perpetrating, with the group of perpetrators, or they're like full throat support of these policies.
Well, I tell you what we have, and I used to wonder about that. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I wondered about like Hitler. So Hitler and Stalin, obviously they couldn't kill all those people by themselves. They had to have help. They had to have henchmen. And it's the same thing we're seeing here in the United States.
Yeah.
So what's happened, what these Marxists have learned, is you have to infiltrate the institutions. You can't beat the institutions out from the outside. The
Right.
Weathermen tried that back in the 60s and they failed. They got clobbered, thrown in jail, and that was the end of the Weathermen. So what they've learned from their mistakes is they learned from the Marxists in the Soviet Union to go ahead and infiltrate these institutions over time and then take them over, and then you own them. And that's precisely what they've done. So they've taken over the leadership of, just take a look at the leadership of the fire department in Los Angeles, right? Take a look at the leadership of the mayor of LA, or the mayor of Portland, or the governor of Oregon. And you can just look at them. You don't even have to say it, they're leftists. And they run those things. And guess what they do? They're going to hire people who look like them. When I say look, I mean not just physically.
On the inside.
Think like you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's who they're going to hire. And the people who don't look like that or think like that, guess what? They're going to be out. They're not going to get the promotions. They're going to retire as soon as they possibly can. They're going to keep their heads low until that 20 years goes by and they can bail out of there. They're going to go work and move to Florida or Texas. And that's precisely what's happened. So now you have an entire department that's either A, run by basically Marxists, or B, people just go along, get along. And that's how it's done. And that's what's happened in these big blue cities.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's clearly the only way that you can get it done. My father-in-law was actually in the German army during the war, and he was a truck driver, and he was not a Nazi, but it's the sort of thing like, well, I guess you register for the party if you want to keep your family alive. He had a thriving business, a trucking business, and he and his wife, my grandmother-in-law, like that's what they needed to do in order to survive, with them and their daughter. And so, and he continued to drive a truck, in the war, because he was told to do it. And he ended up drinking himself to death because he just was sick of the things that he had to do and what where his country went. And that's just sort of what happens, is that you either go along with it enthusiastically and be part of, the SS, or you just get swept up in it and you have to, or you think you have to, because obviously you have a choice at the end of the day. But
you can throw yourself into the ramparts and be like murdered. That's an option.
Sure. Or you could be part of like Schindler's List,
Sure.
folks and like so many other people who actually got involved in the Underground Railroad, did all these wonderful things. But not everybody is going to be extraordinary. So anyway, that's obviously a grand example, of a situation that, is playing out on a much minor level here.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like there's always room to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's, I think from the outside, we don't have a lot of tolerance for people who go along, but it can be, I don't know. I mean, I think if you're on the front line, if you're one of those police officers and you're like, well, shit, I've got 25 years into this job. I've got 5 more years till retirement. I just want to hang on, but
it's a tough thing. I would never, how can I say this? I think a lot of us will look at Germany and say, hey, could I have done what Schindler did or something like that? We like to think of ourselves, yes, I would. But if you really look in the mirror and examine that, would you really? Would you risk getting assassinated? Would you risk your family getting wiped out? I mean, there's a whole lot of, plus in those circumstances, it was a lot harder to leave. In the United States, you can still leave. I mean, for the time being, that's one of the beauties of having 50 different states. you can still leave and go to a free state.
Yeah.
It will cost you, just like you said. It's not like there's going to be no cost associated with doing that. And a lot of people have done just that. Look how many people have fled Oregon, Washington, and California, for example. I mean,
Which is scary to rip up your family and go somewhere else and maybe have a job, maybe not. I mean, it's scary. But I mean, look at how many, like, I mean, I'll tell you that me professionally, I won't even post on social media anymore because I just don't want to get into a conversation that could end with me losing my job. You know, and I work, you know, at a pretty conservative place, but you know, you just, it's hard to point fingers. I'm not saying that I'm definitely saying that the people that are participating in the corruption, that's wrong. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's wrong. And I hope that those people, you know, pay for what they're doing and that there's correction there. But there's some people, I'm sure that there are people that are caught up that really don't want to do it. And, you know, those are the whistleblowers.
Yeah.
You know? Well,
I'll tell you, when it comes to Portland, I've come to believe, and I thought this about the United States, in fact, when the pollsters were running around saying that Trump was losing it, Kamala was going to win, I never believed that. You could not tell me that many Americans are that crazy. I just don't believe it. And I think that's the case in Portland. I don't believe that many Portlanders, given an honest choice at the ballot and given an honest election, I don't think they would vote for this. I don't think they voted for it before, but I do think that they're the type of people that reside in Portland, places like Portland, Minneapolis, and Seattle. They're kind, and kind people get run over, and they lack courage, and they lack. And I know this for a fact. Oregon and Washington are the most unchurched populations in the United States, so they have no spiritual mooring.
That's right.
They have no North Star. And so they just drift. And so when they get hit in the head, they don't know which direction to turn. The rest of the country knows which direction to turn, but they are learning the hard way. So a lot of them don't like that, what they're seeing in downtown Portland.
So because I haven't been totally, you know, following it, I know that there's been a lot of back and forth between Trump and some of the governors. And I know that the governor of Oregon didn't. Well, there's been quite a bit of, or I guess it was the mayor of Portland who was like, "We don't need you here.
Right.
We're just fine." It's one little small block, you know, that is, you know, having some trouble, but it's just a minor scuffle. How do people feel about that? I mean, like anybody driving through downtown Portland has got to look around them and go, my eyes don't deceive me. This is wrong, right? This isn't just a minor thing. And even if it is just a minor, like 1 block or 2 block issue, it's of concern, right?
Well, the first thing is, don't go down there. You don't go down there. And downtown Portland, I mean, and seriously, it's empty because all the businesses are gone. So nobody goes down there. Where that federal building is located is actually about a mile from the core downtown. And I can't give you an example in San Diego that would really give you a sense for this.
It's like probably, right?
It's like the equivalent of not as far as Del Mar, but if you think about the distance from Del Mar to San Diego, maybe a quarter of that distance, right? So maybe it's like 5 miles from the heart of downtown Portland. And that's where this federal building stuff is concentrated. There's a federal building in downtown Portland where all the rioting was happening in 2020 and all of that. And that place is still boarded up and walled off. But for whatever reason, I think ICE is using this other federal building, which is a few miles north. So it's concentrated in that area. So they would like to give these mayors giving the impression that the rest of Portland is just fine. It's simply not true. Yeah. What they've done is they've moved the homeless to certain parts of town, which I think is also. And so they're in these neighborhoods, sleeping on the grass and camping in the parks, and the place is just trashed. And it just happened to be those working class white neighborhoods where they have the least power to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so they're just stuck. They won't enforce the law. You call them 100 times. They won't come clean up the mess, or they clean it up after like 6 months of not doing anything. The homeless leave for like a few weeks, then they come right back. And that's what's happening in Portland. And so, of course, the crime is through the roof because nobody will, it's just like the other big blue cities. It's the same criminals doing the same crime over and over again. They put them in jail for a few weeks to let them right back out in the street.
Yeah.
Catch and release.
Yeah. Well, so what's your prediction, Don? What do you think's going to happen?
Oof, that's a tough one. Here's what I'm going to take out what I hope happens with versus what I think. Here's my gut. This is guessing. We have midterms coming up. That's one thing. I don't know that the administration really wants to have a giant blow up before then. I think the better strategy is to take a state like Tennessee. We have a Republican governor in a blue city like Memphis, where you're going to have cooperation because it's not really about the mayors. The mayors can be bluster and make all the noise they want. It's really about the governors. And that governor's okay with it. So they've gone into Memphis. They're going to get Memphis completely cleaned up. And I think the best strategy would be to go to Republican states with blue cities. Another one would be Kansas. Missouri. So Kansas City, Missouri. Republican governor, blue city. That's a tragedy. Go get those places and clean those up first. Because then the rest of the states are looking at that in the blue cities, because a lot of these people in blue cities, they're not pro-Trump, but they're not pro this. And they're like, I'll take whatever you got to come clean this mess up. And I think that's the best strategy. I think that's what will happen long term. The deal with Portland, we have to remember, is right now Trump is only going on. They're talking about federal property. They're not talking about going into the rest of the city.
Right.
That's a whole nother thing. I mean, I'd love to have that happen, but that's a much bigger issue. But it's not unprecedented. You look at what happened in the 60s. I mean, Eisenhower had to do it because of what happened in Arkansas to get those kids to go to school. Had to do the same thing in Alabama. Kennedy had to do the same thing because George Wallace, the governor, same thing on the steps of the University of Alabama. He famously wouldn't let the black kids go to school. So it's not like this is unprecedented. It's been done before by Republican and Democrat administrations.
Mm-hmm.
So it might eventually come to that. They want, and they'll tell you to your face, they want civil war. And we're trying to get this done without that, without bloodshed. And so I like the way that he's slow rolling this, actually. It's got to be done. And I think he's going about as fast or as slow, depending on your perspective, as you could go and get it done. I think the pace is about right.
Yeah, I hear there, of course, those of us who voted for Trump and are in favor of, everything that he promised, we want it to be done today. But I do understand that it is a process, that you have got to get the building blocks in place, that you've got to work on the infrastructure. And I mean, like the same way that, he got the agreements in place before he made the announcement, of the, Middle East peace, deal, right? It's not a plan, it's actually a deal. And we've got everybody to agree, ahead of time. And that's how it works in business. And that's what Trump knows. So I agree with that. I think get the building blocks in place, and then things are going to start tumbling down. Everybody. So yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think it's going to take a while. Everybody's like, come on, Trump, let's go. We voted for you. You're in. Let's go. But, it's only October. The guy just started. So, And
it's going about as fast as it practically can go. And it is going fast. Here's one other thing. Here's the other thing. While this is going on, the media is killing themselves. As my mother used to say she used to talk about the Ku Klux Klan when I was a kid, her what she would say is when they'd be on TV protesting or whatever, she'd say, let them show their ASSs, right? And what she meant by that was people will see who they are. You don't have to go out there and protest and be mad and cuss and throw stuff at them. People will see that they're fools and stop following them or believing them. And the same thing is occurring right now. The left is showing us the mask is off. Right. People don't want that. Do you want to live next door to somebody who would kill you because you disagree with them? Of course not. Right. And it's driving the national press. Their ratings are going in the toilet. I just saw this. Let's see, it was Axios and Media Trust. Here you go. This is fascinating. So this is a result of a Gallup poll. Only 28% of Americans say they have a great deal of trust in mass media, which is down from 68% in 1972. I'm old enough to remember 1972, right? That figure has never fallen below 30% in history. 28%. And let's see, 51% of Democrats trust big media. Only 51%, by the way. That's amazing when you consider that's their mouthpiece. Only 51% of Democrats trust their own mouthpiece. 8% of Republicans trust big media. I don't know where they found the 8%, but they did. So you basically take a look at that. If the country is split in half, what 60%, which is about where we are, 60% they're lying through their teeth.
Yeah. 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 No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And that's a good thing. So people are moving away from those outlets and they're moving to stuff like this, where they can hear some truth and hear some
Right.
debate, hear free
Yeah.
discussion and argument.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
and,
I feel like it's completely dispersed. I mean that like even when you and I are talking and we're like, did you read this? Did you read that? Do you read this person? Do you read that person? And we've all got these different sources of information. And that I think is kind of good. I mean, the old days of like everybody sitting down in front of the show, right? Whatever it was, like to get your reality check, right? What's real? What's happening in the world? And you had one or two voices. That's so gone. I mean,
actually, that's dangerous. I think one of the best things that's coming out of this is just like if you had like one auto manufacturer. Well, you'd be screwed because there'd be no competition.
Yeah.
You'd be at their mercy.
Yeah.
So if you have multiple car manufacturers, that competition winds up creating better cars. The same thing applies to the public school system. The reason the public school system stinks is because it's public. It's because it's the only one and there's no competition. When you introduce competition, you wind up getting a better product. This is true pretty much in everything. If you want to watch like a good football team, nobody goes to watch the worst team. You want to go watch the best teams. And that's is true in every endeavor of life. When you get introduced competition, you wind up with a better situation. People like to have choices, and no one outfit can then take over and you only get one message, the one they want you to hear. That's what the government wants. And we basically had government controlled media over the last 5 years and probably more like 20.
Yeah.
Now that the mask off, this is completely obvious.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I love the fact that they've got Barry Weiss in there now running CBS News, who's not a conservative, but she's definitely an independent thinking Democrat, and the Dems don't like that. She's a woman, she's gay, she's a Democrat, but she is not she's not towing the party line.
Right.
She wasn't towing the COVID line. She wasn't, and so the Dems don't like her. And it's like, she's checking all the boxes that you guys say are what we need, but all of a sudden it's not what, turns out, they're, anyway, but so we'll see where CBS goes. It might be, I think it's going to be a good change.
Yeah. Well, here's the bottom line. They're being forced into this because the fact of the matter is they're losing money hand over fist.
Yeah.
I wish they were doing this for the right reasons, but you and I both know that's not the case.
No.
They're doing it because they have to do it. It's either that or go bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, we as Christians hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we want to do things because it's for the right reasons, and we hope that other people do things for those right reasons. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to profits. And so hopefully we can turn things around so the right thing to do is profitable. Like all these investment companies that are getting people on board because they're steering people towards investment in organizations and companies and publicly held companies that have the right values. So hopefully we can find news organizations that share our values. I mean, that's why I listen to Tucker Carlson. That's why I listen to Rush Limbaugh. That's why I listen to these different folks, because they share my values, and so I want to support them.
The biblical passage, wise as serpents and guileless as doves, I think is how it goes, something like that, right? You got to be able to think like them and not be them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, when you brought up competition, and then you it is taking me to the article that we were talking about earlier about China, who's not exactly great at competition. They just steal. They're
really good at it.
But what they did with it is pretty cool, and it makes it kind of like we were talking about. Makes me wonder, like, well, crap, why haven't we done that here? So China So Karen Hunt, speaking of like great news sources, I read her Substack, and I think she's got some very, very interesting and provocative things, some provocative viewpoints. But she featured a bridge in China that is the world's tallest bridge. And it was completed, the project was completed in just under 4 years. This bridge is 2,050 feet above the river, spans 4,600 feet across the river. It cuts what was a 2-hour drive down to 2 minutes. At the very top of the bridge, they have a restaurant. They have is it zip lining? No. What are they? Oh, they have a waterfall off the edge of the bridge and bungee jumping off the bridge. And there's a theme park, a skywalk, and a glass elevator. Okay, so there's a video. I can go to Karen Hunt's Substack. It's amazing. And I worked in medical device. You worked in pharma. Like, we know that China just steals everything from anybody who goes over there, has any good ideas. I mean, they're going to steal it. All right. So they stole this idea, right? Where are the people that invented this idea? Where is this world's tallest bridge in those countries? And what about, you've got America. Look at what we did in order to build our country, in order to build the highway system, in order to build the bridges, the infrastructure, the railroads. And instead of celebrating that and maximizing that, expanding that, we've gutted that. We've told our children, you're not valuable and you're not of quality if you don't go to college.
Yeah.
Don't follow a trade. Don't learn how to build a bridge. Don't learn how to drive a plane. Don't know how to unclog your sink, which, by the way, we got a clogged sink on Thanksgiving. Entire Christmas budget paying that dude to come out and clog the sink so that we could get our dishes done, after dinner. I mean, honestly, so it just makes you. On one hand, it's like, what? Why are we not doing that? But on the other hand, it makes me think they didn't do that. Like, we know that, I'm not saying China has nothing to offer, but everybody knows that they steal everybody else's stuff. So we are certainly capable of doing this sort of project in our own country. And I love that Trump is, incentivizing people to bring back their manufacturing. And he's penalizing companies who are hiring talent outside of the country. He's now putting greater restrictions and a higher cost on any company that wants to bring in an H-1B visa person, right? I mean, he's and Mike Rowe, who's really highlighting and paying for people, to get into the trades. He's highlighting the need for these tradespeople, and he's offering scholarships to people who want to, get in and get a blue collar job, which honestly, I'm in favor. So
I think what you have to realize when you look at this is all part of the grand one world order global strategy. The objective is not let any one country be too powerful. And of course, target number one is the United States. Target number two would be the European countries, because when you combine them, that's the world's GDP, with the exception of maybe Japan as the other outlier. So how do you do it? You've got to take down the United States. And one of the ways they've done this is by allowing us to gut ourselves from within with this crazy trade imbalance. So we're shipping our jobs all over the world to other places, which means that we're dependent on other countries to make the stuff we buy. So who's benefiting from that? Well, the wealthy people in the East and in the West on the coast, they benefit from that because they're the ones who own lots of stock.
Right.
And so they benefit from doing this. The people who would have jobs in the center of the country where we used to make stuff, they don't have them. And anyone who's driven any of the back roads in the United States, what you see, and you can see this is driving back roads of Oregon and Washington, you'll see one gutted factory, one empty factory, one factory in decline. There used to be timber mills. There used to be like paper factories. There used to be steel companies. All these things are like just gone. And it's all been in the last like 20 or 30 years. Why? Because they shipped them all overseas. So they have jobs, but our middle class is being destroyed by it. I think one of the most valuable things this administration is doing with these tariffs is if you want to do business here, that's fine. We'll buy from your company. They just have to make it here. I
Yeah.
think that's like awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like one of the most, and those jobs are flying back, and it's just awesome.
So now I'm just waiting for the tariff dollars spigot to be opened up, and then we can start actually putting that money in our pockets. I'm glad that they're going to be offering jobs. I'm glad that we're going to be, we're filling the coffers, but I want them to eliminate income taxes.
Well,
I want them to eliminate property taxes and give me a little rebate. Give me a little rebate on my taxes.
You're president for life.
I mean, I had this like fantasy tax code in my head where I decided, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to wipe out all taxes. And I mean, we can have some sales taxes here and there, but when it comes to like income taxes and, state taxes, basically income taxes, we're just going to do like a credit. We're going to do it on credits. If you're doing something that benefits, that doesn't draw on society, if you have health insurance, if you have disability insurance, if you have life insurance, you get a credit. If you have a trust for your family, you get a credit because you're not a draw on the account. If you have a certain level of savings, you get a credit, right? If you have an intact family, you get a credit, right? If you're a homeowner, you get a credit. Like if you're doing things that benefit society and and position yourself to be self-sufficient, then you actually get a credit because in the long term, you're not going to be drawing on the taxpayer base. So why take my money now to be right? I mean, that would really clean out all of this government, these government BS projects, that they want to do this, they want to do that, but that doesn't really help me. Instead, let's just deduct. If you want to send your kids to private school, great. Then we don't have to, hire all those public school teachers. You get a credit.
Yeah, well, my feeling, the whole public school system should be completely dismantled. I know that can't happen overnight, but what can happen is you do a school choice and then people can take, and their dollars follow them. So public schools can stay open and people can choose them, but you can bet your bottom dollar they're not going to choose, for the most part, to send their kids to underperforming schools. They're going to take those dollars and send them someplace where their kids might actually learn something.
Right.
Or if you do it at home, you put the dollars in your pocket and do your homeschool thing.
Yeah.
Well, and then fair.
Yeah, and I think that those public school teachers who, like we've been talking about with the police, and the whatever, good people in a bad situation, those good public school teachers are going to rise, and they're going to carry the system. It's like there's going to be some quality. It's going to be painful, and there's going to be some trimming. But if you're great and you believe in the public school system, stick around and rebuild the system. Great, right? Wow. That because at the end of the day, what we want is just a better society. Right. And if like you said, if we allow competition to exist and we really play the game honestly, fairly, then it will make everyone better and everything better.
And see, here's the thing. This is the unspoken thing out there that people don't like to hear. There's a good percentage of people who are secret mooches. I mean, they basically want to do just enough to get by. And hey, that's okay. As long as you do that on your dime, that's fine.
Right.
But there's a huge, and these people go into these professions on purpose. They seek out the professions where they can do the least amount of work and get the most amount of money. Now, once upon a time, maybe say 30 or 40 years ago, it was understood. If you went to go work for the government, the upside is that you would never get fired or laid off unless you did something. I don't know what you had to do to get fired, but it'd be very hard to get fired, right? So you could coast. The downside is you're not going to make as much money as maybe your counterpart in the private sector,
right?
But you're not going to be faced with the competition of layoffs and downsizing and competition and all that other stuff. But now what we've done over the last 20 or 30 years, we've made it so it's more profitable to be in the government. So there's no risk. So you can go be lazy and lay around and make the same amount of money as somebody that takes the risk.
Yep.
And that's not going to work long term. That's why one of the greatest things that's happened is the potential gutting of the DC established government employee base, which I know is a great segue into another one of our conversations. The shutdown. The more of them that get laid off, the better.
Yeah, I love it. Wow. I love it. And, I was talking to a friend who's a veteran, and he was like, yeah, but the military, they're not getting paychecks. But we all know that they get retro pay. Nobody goes without. I mean, now yes. Well,
we're going to do.
There are people that are going to be suffering through all of this.
Mhm.
And, hopefully they're talking to their electeds, their Democratic electeds, and saying, get your head out of your patootie and let's get to voting the right way. Like,
Mhm.
go along with the clean bill and, quit handing our money over to illegals.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that's so insane about this. The Democrat Party, the levers in the party itself have been taken over by the extreme crazy part of it. And the rest of it's afraid to stand up and fight back to them.
Yeah.
Because clearly they're leading in the toilet. I mean, their polling is absolutely horrendous. I know I have the numbers in here somewhere, but their polling numbers keep going further and further down. And every position they represent is like a 20-80 position. I mean, 80% of the country doesn't want teenage kids to get chopped up. They don't want that. 80% of them or more don't want to see the borders wide open. They don't want that. 80% of them like inflation being down to 3%. They like that. They like the jobs coming back into the country. They like that. They like the fact that there might not be taxes on tips. They like that. I mean, you just go down the line, and they see these blue mayors and governors defending criminals. I mean, flat criminals in the street. Most of the populations, that's not good. And then they run around calling the population stupid. So if you're a Trump supporter, you're stupid. Well, over 50% of the population voted that way. If I'm trying to sell something, generally, I'm not going to make sales if I call my potential clients stupid. But that's what they're doing.
But Dawn, they've been getting away with it. They got away with it. People, they have done this for so long. We've taught them that this is how to do things. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like these radicals in Antifa. We've created monsters, and not we, but the establishments created these monsters. And you have people that on the Democrat side who are just totally comfortable standing up and insulting people on the other side and calling them names and shutting them down and canceling them and exposing their home addresses. And it's just like,
well, they've unleashed these demons, but the pendulum's coming back at them. And it's coming back hard. And if you don't believe that, look at the results of the last election. And I think the polling's understating it. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm probably one of the few people saying, not that we should get comfortable, but I think the midterm is going to be an absolute landslide. Plus, I think in this next week, there's a Supreme Court case that's about to be decided around that the Civil Rights Act that essentially allowed gerrymandering so that so you can create districts that were basically, black or brown districts. Well, that's all about to be reversed. And it looks like Supreme Court is going to do that. And if they do, that's a good 19 Republican districts instantly created.
Wow. God, that would be wonderful.
Well,
yeah.
So, I kind of see this midterm being a landslide the other direction.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Supreme Court, I know they've got a full docket, but one of the cool, I think something very, very worthwhile that they're taking up is this guy that was just convicted, Nicholas John Roski of Simi Valley. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison for the alleged assassination of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And he was sentenced at a local level. Attorney AG Pam Bondi is now taking this up. The Department of Justice is now taking it up because, obviously, it's not okay to try to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. And the fact that this guy got 8 years is really saying to everybody else, come on up, take a shot, get him in your sights. And every Supreme Court justice who already has maximum security, right? I mean, both sides, there's activists on both sides, but they're concerned. They're definitely concerned.
These assassinations and these threats of assassinations they should be treated, they're treason. They should be treated as treason. And we need to bring back the old treason laws. We haven't executed anyone for treason, I don't think, since the Rosenbergs back in 1953, 54. And that's what needs to happen. There needs to be a huge deterrent because those people, when they do this, they're not just killing Judge Kavanaugh
No,
or attempting to kill them. They're attempting to kill all of us.
it's a statement. Absolutely.
It's exactly that. And if your government has people in it, if judges are afraid to judge fairly,
Yep.
then you wind up with a situation like you have in Mexico, where you have no law at all.
Yeah.
Basically, the criminals run things.
Everybody's got off. Yeah. Yeah.
Like what happened in Colombia back in the 80s and 90s, there was no government at all.
Yeah.
And so we can't have that where people are, that would be the end of freedom itself. If you can't speak what's on your mind.
Right.
And the left here in this country has done that. I just thought of this. We forget about this couple. Remember the couple that was murdered in Minnesota? I think it was Minneapolis last year. She was I think she was in state government.
Yeah.
She voted the wrong way on a medical bill, and she was a Democrat.
Yeah.
And they didn't like the way they voted, and they knocked on her door and murdered her and her husband.
Yep.
I mean, there's one of those cases we forget it. There's been so many, it's hard to remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that sort of thing is really the person that did that shot all of us.
Well, and then I don't know if you saw the news that came out, or I guess the release of information about Arctic frost and
Yes.
how it's now been revealed that there were like 9 members of Congress on the Republican side whose phones were being surveilled.
Unbelievable.
And I mean, so you've got attacks on the Supreme Court, you've got attacks. So you've got all 3 branches. You've got the legislative, you've got the executive, and then you have and then you have the judiciary. All 3 branches are literally being attacked.
Yeah, it's when you think about what happened to Nixon, and all it was one break-in, and you look at what's happening here, and then how the press is treating it. The press did everything they could to take Nixon down for only a fraction of what they've done here. It's unreal. It's unreal.
It's going to get interesting.
Yeah, yes, it is. McCarthy, I might have to do a write-up of McCarthy. McCarthy was right. And unfortunately, he was the wrong messenger because he was drunk and kind of out of the control. But the reality is, it turned out he was right on a lot of things.
Yeah, I'd like you to do a write-up.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of the State Department was full of leftists and Marxists. He was right.
Yeah.
It just took us 40 or 50 years to figure it out. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. But yeah, that Arctic frost did get my attention. Just incredible. But I think on the positive side, we may have mentioned this the last time around, this sudden resurgence in religion in the public square, I think is one of the most positive things we've had in a long, long time. Because when you get to the bottom of it, everything as it winds up is a moral question. What you should do versus what you shouldn't do. And if we're not teaching morality, then the whole thing is going to fall apart. We can't have a freedom, constitutional republic without religiosity. And one of the things that the left has tried to do for the last 40, 50 years, 100% eliminate religion from the public square, which is pretty much impossible because morality is based on all law is based on morality. So how can you talk about law without talking about religion? That's the underpinning of it all. And I think one of the best things that's happened, if there's anything positive to come out of this assassination of Charlie Kirk and all these other things that are going on, is that.
That's the activation. I mean, that is what happens, is that, you finally reach a point where we just can't take it anymore. I mean, that's really where it is. It's like you give and you give. And I think it's Jordan Peterson who talks about that it's just this slight nudge. It's the slight nudge. It's somebody who, you can test this on your own. You could be standing next to somebody, and if you just take a half step in their direction, they will move away. You take another half step in their direction, they will move away. Physically, that will happen. Well, figuratively, that's been happening in our society for many, many years. And so we have moved the needle on tolerance. well, okay, let's just let them do that because that's their thing. And all right, well, it's wrong. It feels wrong, but I'm just going to give them some space to do whatever they're going to do. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to give them a little. I mean, it's that slippery slope. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's raised teenagers knows the slippery slope very well. Like, no, your curfew is, right? And I don't care if you ran out of gas or you got stuck in a line or whatever it is, right?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. My wife has a favorite saying: "There is no private sin." And when you really dig into that and realize, what that means, you can kind of see. So, for example, we said in the '60s, once we had the birth control pill, hey, do whatever you want, whenever you want. If it feels good, do it. I mean, that was the saying of the day. And since it's two consenting adults, it's cool. It's not hurting anybody. Well, the reality is, it is. Or if they decide to walk away from each other, and dad doesn't want to raise his kid and he just walks off, that's their decision. Well, you might, but it hurts all of us, because guess what happens? You know, and I'm not talking about from a religious perspective, strictly from a secular perspective, who winds up taking care of that mom and that kid? Well, the rest of us wind up paying for it through welfare and all these other things. Johnny grows up and becomes a criminal because he's got no dad around. We wind up paying for that too. Then you
Yeah.
got to have a security alarm on your door because Johnny might come by and kick your door in. You got to
Yeah.
wind up paying for that security alarm.
Right.
Now your wife's got to go to the grocery store with a 6-shooter in her purse. Why? Because Johnny might mug her on the way to the store. You wind up paying for it in a zillion different ways.
Yeah,
This is one of the funniest things I hear people say. I'm a fiscal conservative and a social liberal. That is like the most lazy thing ever. That is a statement of someone who's trying to escape taking a side. Sorry, you have to take a side, because there's no such thing. You can't be a fiscal conservative and a social liberal, because if you're a fiscal conservative, you know that if you're liberal on social stuff, then Johnny's going to wind up kicking your door down, and you're going to wind up paying for him. And so there goes your fiscal responsibility right there.
You're
You got to
right.
be either conservative or liberal, one or the other.
Yeah, that's very true. I've actually said that when I was in my 20s and my early 30s, even though I've always voted Republican. I don't know if I told you this, but my parents showed up on my 18th birthday. It was my freshman year of college, and they showed up and they had a little stuffed elephant, and they said, "Just to remind you,
That's funny.
take it with you, keep it on your bed."
That's funny.
So I mean, anyway, that's just kind of where I came from. But I've certainly said, that, oh yes, I'm fiscally conservative, because you're right. It's non-controversial. It allows you to feel good about making a stand, but it also allows you to play the compassion card at the same time, and makes you feel like you're a little bit, socially progressive. Like I'm in touch with people, I'm tolerant, I'm up on the times, and it kind of speaks a little bit to a libertarian kind of mindset.
Yes.
But you're right. In truth, you cannot be socially liberal and be fiscally conservative, because the social issues will come in and bite you in the butt. They will cost you money. So you're not actually, you're kind of like, oh, I'm a saver, but I use my credit cards all the time. Well, I mean, that doesn't work, right? So you have to choose a side.
Yeah, it's like I was the same as you. I was kind of like the same way. I'm trying to find that middle way and not hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah.
But guess what? At the end of the day, somebody's feelings got to get hurt, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it is. I mean, if I'm let's say I'm a soft on crime liberal. Yeah, I know the guy robbed the store with a gun. Let's only, he had a bad upbringing. Let's give him 3 months. Then 4 months later, he's out there shooting somebody, right? That's what happens.
Yeah. He's telling your son, his neighbor, you know what? It's actually not so bad, because I went in and they only gave me 3 months. Right. So come on. Right. I mean, it's that rot that just happens, Yeah.
Unfortunately, human beings respond to incentives. And maybe you've seen these videos with the police. I saw this in Portland. This actually happened. So you have Multnomah County and you have Clackamas County, which is just next to Multnomah. So Multnomah is where the DA is super liberal and they just let everything run out of control. Clackamas and the counties around it aren't nearly as liberal. So if you do a crime like thieving in Multnomah County, you had no problem, right? They're going to let you back on the street. So they got this cop car. They just picked up some kids or young people, I should say, who robbed a store at a mall. But they're in Clackamas County, which I think is Beaverton. I think that's right. It's a different county. And they think that they had done this crime And then the cop laughs and says something like, I got bad news for you. You're in Clackamas County. You just see the look on their face like, oh, and the one tells the other one, we really screwed up now. We did this crime in Clackamas County. So they know. And I've seen similar videos to that, like in Orange County, I think it was, down in California, where they did this crime in the county over. Is like, uh-oh, we did this in the wrong county.
Yeah. Orange County is more conservative for sure.
Yep. They are smart enough. They may not sound articulate, but they're smart enough to know that stuff. And people respond to incentives, and we just need to bring those incentives back. Like Tony Beretta said, if you do the crime, you got to do the time, right?
That's right. That's right. A lot of these criminals are actually kind of they're groomed, and they have a little network, like these sort of what do you call it, like the not slash and grab, but what do you call that? Like the
smash and grab.
Yeah, smash and grab, exactly. Mm-hmm. Where these guys they're organized. You know, mm-hmm. they're told, okay, you know, we're going to get in the van and we're going to go to these 10 spots today. And, mm-hmm. you know, here's your bag, you know, here's your large duffel bag. And I want you to go in, and these are the items that I want you to steal.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to go here because, you know, Nordstrom's Rack, because they don't really follow, you know, any rules. The shoppers are kind of bougie, and, you know, and so the security is kind of a little bit more lax. And so, I mean, I was in Nordstrom's Rack, I don't think of myself as bougie, but I don't know, maybe I am. But anyway, I was in there, and, you know, silly me, I'm in line to pay. Mm-hmm. And this guy comes in with it, and he runs out the door with the duffel bag, and everybody
actually saw it.
And I was like, I said to the cashier, why am I paying? I got a whole duffel bag full of stuff that I want. And I'm paying for like some stupid pair of tennis shoes that I like had to think in my mind, well, I won't get the really expensive ones. I'll get the middle ones, you know, like.
Actually, Leslie, you are paying. because again, yep, you're paying. It's like we talked about, the social liberal thing, right? You know, we let this is probably the 15th time he's done that. He's probably been caught before, because some lefty policies let this guy go rob on the streets. Now the prices of everything else are higher because of this guy.
Right. Yeah. And the employee's just looking at me like, well, you know, sorry, ma'am. You know, I was like, I feel totally like violated right now. Like I feel like such an idiot. But, you know, of course I'm paying because I'm doing the honest thing. But
yeah. So we're doing such a gigantic disservice to the citizens who live in those areas, because what happens is eventually those that can just move. And then those areas become even more inhabited by people who are less capable of handling the problem or taking care of themselves. And those places just go further and further into hell. Yeah. So the merciful thing to do would be to go in, enforce the law, get those guys off the street, which is precisely what this administration is trying to do, so that everybody can have a better society. I mean, look at Washington, D.C. There hasn't been a murder there in how long? A long time.
A month? How long? How long have they been there? Yeah.
Yeah. 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, where there was like, I don't know what, 2 murders a weekend or something.
Okay. I just have to point out, Lori just posted something in the chat that's hilarious. She just said, did anyone see the protester in the face of an ICE agent yelling "What's your name" over and over again?
That's great. Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. I'm glad those guys have a sense of humor. I got to say, I couldn't do it. I just.
You have to be so desensitized to just see the comedy of it. You just have to know. I mean, these guys have clearly been through some things and just are able to keep their cool. Yeah, you and I would freak out, you know. We'd run.
I would have like,
or, you know,
I would hit one up with a stick over the head, and then I'd be in jail, and
I'd be getting in trouble all the time. But yeah, I'm kind of a loose cannon. I mean, I've been approached on things like that, where like on a subway, you know, and you know, whatever, you know, and I'm you know, I'm a woman of small stature, and so you know, sort of the assumption is like, well, it'll probably be easy to, you know, and it's like, oh no, I'm like a Tasmanian devil. I don't care who's around. I'm gonna offend everyone, okay? But you're gonna go away.
If people make that mistake, just because think of somebody small, never forget this: Mike Tyson was only 5'10".
Oh, really?
A lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. Almost everybody he fought was bigger. Talk about a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I would not be a good ICE agent because
Yeah.
I'd be uncool.
Oh, I hear you.
I'd be losing my cool all the time.
Thank goodness we have those people.
Oh my gosh.
Well, my friend, we are reaching the top of the hour. Unbelievably enough, it's been 56 minutes again. I always enjoy this so much. I hope you and the audience enjoy this dialogue as much as I do. Leslie, it's always a blast.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're enlightening you all and enlightening each other. We're certainly getting enlightenment from you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Any final comments, Leslie?
No, I think I love it. And I love the comments that people put into the chat. Yeah. Lori's always good for a laugh. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for keeping that up. And Dawn,
Dr. Pepper.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me back every week. Every week I close up, an episode and I'm like, oh, how did it go?
Yeah.
Is he gonna want me? Is he gonna replace me? But anyway.
No way.
Me back, so I'm happy.
You're in it to win it. All right. Good night, everybody.
Alrighty. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.